Sorry, I was wouldn't believe how many phone calls I get on a Saturday morning from
Yeah,
people.
you get comfortable with your cup of coffee.
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta go. I should not pick up. I said, hey, I've got to be on in 5 minutes. I can talk to you for 30 seconds. So the mayor, I sent her the link because she didn't get it. And so she should be getting on. She's
Great.
going to come in as a panelist with my link.
Perfect.
So do we have anybody in the waiting room?
Not that I can see.
Okay. There she is. We'll have to rename her. Can we rename her, or can she rename herself?
You can rename herself by right-clicking on her.
And Jackie, do you need to leave a little early today because you're doing that other event?
I think you're still muted,
Yeah.
Jackie.
Okay, so now I'm not muted. I'm trying to figure out how to change my
If
name.
you go to the participants button,
Okay,
and then next to your name, there should be a more option. And you can,
well, it's under Jody, so I wonder which one is that? Me? Okay.
good question, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and just rename it, and I'll rename myself. It's the wrong one. Just go ahead and do
Or
it.
Jody, you can mute yourself, and then whichever one does not show up as muted.
I'm doing it right now. Hold on, don't do anything yet. Okay, rename. Okay.
Hey, you picked the right one, well done.
50% chance.
Yep. Now Jody's still muted. We're gonna create a money in the jar program for muting.
Right. Donuts
Donuts, there you go.
at CCI. If you keep your hand raised up or do something like that, you have to buy donuts. And so,
That keeps people accountable.
yeah, well, there's some that no, it does not. So anyway, I think that if we can go ahead and just record it, and then we can share it, because I think this is a really important conversation, and I'm going to go ahead and post two again, because sometimes,
What's our topic? Do we have a topic?
yeah,
Talking about-
we are talking about broadband and what we're going to do. And so this gentleman I brought today, Jackie, is well, Jalitza too. You haven't met Jalitza, but absolutely outstanding folks. So let me just let's start, and we'll start recording, and I'll introduce everybody. But Mark, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just reacting to your crazy comment.
What crazy comment?
Never mind.
You guys are amazing. I mean, I keep telling everybody, I said it last night at the Beat Worker Farmer documentary last night. I was like, yeah, I'm really lucky. I joined a team that's like absolutely outstanding. So I get to just kind of, I get to join in. So anyway, so let's start, and I'll introduce everybody, and then give a quick update, and then I'm going to introduce Mark and Jalitza and Jackie. These are two people that are really critical for some of the things we want to do going forward. So good morning. So Jalitza, are we recording? Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shadduck-McNally. Thanks for being here for our Loveland community conversations with commissioners in Loveland. I'm so pleased to have Loveland Mayor Jacki Marsh. She's joined us for all of our community conversations, and I really appreciate her collaboration and joining us this morning. And her and I talk weekly. We have such a great collaboration, and we talk about all kinds of regional things, from climate change and energy and water use, and it's really been a great partnership. So thank you, Mayor Marsh, for being here today. I'd also like to thank Jalitza Martinez from our Larimer County Public Affairs Office. She's one of our outreach coordinators, and I'm really grateful for her. She's been traveling with me to some of these events. And then, and last, but certainly not least, but a great person in our department, someone who I really have a lot of great respect for, because he is doing some amazing things so Mark Pfaffinger is our IT director, and I may not have that full title correctly, but he can correct that when he introduces himself later. But he is here today to share some of the exciting news and things that we're doing at the county in terms of broadband. So first, before I go into that and talk about the strategic goal and where we're at with that, I'd like to just share a couple updates with you all. This time of year is really exciting. It's budget time. And we are doing a lot of budget things. We approved some service proposals. We had even a Friday afternoon budget meeting yesterday, and we had a budget retreat on Wednesday for, I think, 4 hours. And we really are really excited about our budget. Of course, there's a lot of things in there that are related to COVID, but the budget is looking at our operating procedures and things that we're planning for the future. One big move that we did that I want to share with everybody, which I think will resonate, is we took some funds out of our general fund and put them into a special fund for climate impact and really natural disaster work. And that is going to, I think we put $12 million in that account. Sounds like a lot of money, but when we look back at the 2013 floods, the Cameron Peak wildfire, and the Black Hollow incident, those have all been, at least 12 million, if not more. And so the Black Hollow incident, after the first day after we lost 4 souls, and we're still looking for the 5th, and that original price tag was $7.5 million just for that debris flow, which is a lot of debris, but we were able to find some savings there. But I think the 2013 floods was 16 million we had to come up with right away, because a lot of times federal dollars and things kind of lag, and we like to have that money in the fund so we can get to work right away in helping residents and helping our county recover. So that's one big thing. Jaleesa, if you could put in the chat the budget tool, I think it'd be great for to remind folks that we have that new great tool that our budget office put together. And I think IT might have helped a little bit with that, but it's a fantastic tool we built from the ground up. We stole a few ideas from Idaho, from a town in Idaho or county, but it's some great things to look at our budget and see where the money goes. It's really important. We're trying to be really good stewards of the taxpayer money. So Mayor Marsh, do you have a few things you'd like to share today?
Let's see, some updates from City of Loveland. We, as probably a lot of people know, we had been looking at possibly building a whitewater adventure park. It was kind of an old kind of project that was moving forward slowly, and then all of a sudden there was kind of a spurt because there was a deadline to be able to access some funds from the state, whereby they would have put a percentage of their sales tax revenue towards this project had we gotten it off the ground. The decision was made to not move forward and to end that period that we could go forward with it using some state funds. We're not able to get a developer on board. The deadline was November 12th, and so the decision was made to kind of drop it. So we're out of that for the time being anyway. Let's see. We formally interviewed our last candidates for the Trust Commission. This would be a group of citizens without any council or any staff. It would be a group of citizens to come up with suggestions, recommendations for how to improve trust of local government and police department and our services in the City of Loveland. We interviewed a total of 19 people. We are asking the City Council to approve 16 of those. It would be a 16-person board and 3 alternates. So that'll come before City Council on Tuesday. And we are proposing the first meeting of that new Trust Commission for October 25th. At that meeting, the Trust Commission will decide when they want to meet, what frequency, and they will decide to take it where they want it to go. We hope to hear some good suggestions from them. Let's see. We're also working on budget. That's kind of our big issue right now. Plan to have first reading of a budget in late October. Well, hopefully, and then again in November with final reading being in December. Let's see. We discovered some loopholes in our campaign laws and our charter, basically some deficiencies that are going to allow big business and political parties to invest in our campaigns this cycle. So even though I think the intent of the people, when they determined to set a limit for individual donations to campaigns, which appreciates a little bit over time, is set at $130 per donor, there's a loophole that is going to allow political parties and other special interest to pretty much donate unlimited. So that's kind of disappointing. Obviously, we need to correct that. We'll take a charter committee to do that, a charter committee to take a look at revising or throwing out our current charter and bringing in a new charter. On a personal level, I'm becoming more and more alarmed at the housing cost in our area. In Loveland right now, the median home price is $500,000. That's up $100,000 from a year ago. The average household income in Loveland is $80,000. To purchase a $500,000 home takes a household income of $150 to $175. So we've reached a point where the median household income cannot afford the median price home. So I would like to see us convene a committee and look at how we're going to address it, because that's huge. If people can't afford to live here, they're obviously not going to be able to live here. And that will affect employment, because you won't have employers coming in if people can't afford to live here. It's very much a cycle. Everything is interconnected. So that's something that I'd like to tackle once we seat a new council. That's my updates.
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. Appreciate all of that. I know you guys are doing a lot of budget work too. So without further ado, because I'm pretty excited about having our IT director, Mark Pfaffinger, here today. We have, as a county, 3 strategic goals. And there's, well, I'm gonna just talk about one goal. We have goal number 1 is infrastructure. And then goal number 2 is housing and programs and services. And goal number 3, I believe, is internal. Let me see how evolution of operations. So within goal number 1, infrastructure, objective number 3 is kind of where we're at talking today. And it's talking about rural infrastructure. And we are looking at expanding broadband services within the unincorporated areas, which is something I'm very excited about, because if you hear a lot going on with the American Rescue Plan dollars and some of the other money that's coming from the federal government, we have some really amazing opportunities to reach out and do broadband throughout our county. I think this is really important from a lot of standpoints. Number 1, for equity and access. Number 2, economic opportunities and for small businesses in the rural areas, and for individuals who work from home. Number 3, for education. We have a lot of children that were at home doing class from home, and had from my house, it was really hard to kind of stay on in the internet for classes. And sometimes even my daughter would be pushed out during a test, and it was very, very stressful for her. And also for a public safety standpoint, for fires and flooding and emergency management and notifications, we could get to some of these homes that are more rural and have some of these access. But doing this takes a regional approach, which is something that I really believe in, collaborating and working regionally. And we've been doing a lot of that already. There's one program or one opportunity we took with the City of Loveland and Pulse. The internet, Loveland provides internet service through their program called Pulse, and they've been fantastic partners. And the Thompson School District and the county, and out to the mobile home park at 57th and 287 called Lago Vista. And we were able to get, the school district got a grant. We were able to bring internet out to those folks. There's a lot of children out there and families, and that was really successful. So I could talk a lot about this, but I think what I'm so excited about is having Mark here today, because he's done a phenomenal job getting things organized. We've applied. I'll let him share about the other grant and what we're trying to do, because it will be, I think, game changing and transformational for our county. And I'm super excited that I get to be the gold steward for this infrastructure and broadband thing. So without further ado, Mark, I'm going to stop talking because you have a lot to share, and I'm glad that Mayor can hear about this today.
Well, thanks for having me. You did a great job. You covered a lot of it. Just a little background on me. I'm Mark Pfaffinger. I've worked at the county for over 22 years in various roles in information technology. I know Dan Coldiron pretty well from years of working up here in Fort Collins, and also his work in Loveland. And also now I'm the official title is Chief Information Officer for Larimer County, which is the IT director role. So as you heard in the strategic plans, a lot of the internal operations, as well as now having this focus more and more on community issues, it's really changed the role of the CIO in organizations, especially like Larimer County. And the good news is I'm embracing it. I enjoy it. I get to see how the work that my department does, as well as the work of the county, really affects the community at large. And so, as you know, the commissioners have done a number of things over the years, similar, trying to, Loveland's done some amazing things to move the capability for connectivity for folks way far forward. We've done feasibility studies for the community. We've done worked in partnership with Connection and Pulse on a number of projects, like the one Jody just mentioned, which will bring connectivity to Longo Vista and the Drake area. And our latest round really was to try to get ourselves the next level of readiness for opportunities that should come up. And for me, those opportunities seem to be materializing in federal and state grant opportunities. And some of the things that the grants look for primarily are good community collaboration is a really big issue for them. The most successful projects in this area are ones where everyone's working together. And we got a really big leg up on that. I meet regularly with both Brianna Reed-Harmel, as well as the folks at Connection. And more recently, we're trying to bring in more and more partners like Poudre Valley REA and others that really affect more of our rural areas of the county. Our latest initiative, which was kind of to test the waters on collaboration, was a co-join, but the Larimer County was the primary requester on an NTIA grant that allows us to expand internet connectivity outside of the current footprints of Pulse's network and Connection's network. So the good news on that is it kind of gets us ready to kind of go, okay, let's try a small project, kind of, get the kinks worked out, figure out how we're going to work together or partner on this. And in that grant, it's a $27 million grant request. The commissioners have agreed to provide the matching funds for this grant, which is a 10% match. So they've pulled that together from their general fund. And that will, and I can show a map real quick here, just so you get some visuals on this. I think this is the right one. Nope, that's not the right one. I have two maps up apparently. Okay, here we go. So, and that's not, can you see a map on the screen right now? Okay, so this is the area of Loveland. These areas in yellow are census blocks and community areas that are on the boundaries, which are the blue area, which is where Connection is providing service. And most of Loveland is providing service primarily in their city municipal areas. But as you know, Connections, by building their utility, they are allowed to build inside and outside of Loveland, which my big joke is, I guess we could build service to the moon if we wanted to, but probably that's not really realistic, obviously, not very many connection points. So as you can see, areas just to the west of Loveland, as you're going up Highway 34, we have this neighborhoods just to the north and east of Loveland that are really high need areas. This area, which is kind of surprising, this is like the Ptarmigan golf course area. That's also in our grant application, as well as an area just to the south of where we're already doing a project with Longo Vista to kind of expand and leverage some of the fiber there. In addition, we have another number of projects more to the north, to the west of Fort Collins, and to the north of Fort Collins that are also on our grant application. So if we do get the funding for this, we'll be able to expand those municipal broadband services into these adjacent communities. Primarily, these are in our GMA. So we've been trying to work as closely as possible with Loveland and Fort Collins to make sure we're all kind of lockstep on this and we're working together closely. So what enabled that to happen? Well, primarily what enabled this was the commissioners supported another pot of money to basically come up with engineering costs for the entire Larimer County area outside of the municipal projects were already being funded and worked on. These engineering estimates and designs are grant ready, I'll call them. So they're not shovel ready necessarily. They're not down to the actual, boring and cutting streets level, but they're pretty close. And they give us really good estimate numbers based on what we already know from the existing projects that are being done on what it costs to expand into all areas of Larimer County. And so our general process right now has been trying to partner as much as possible. And so far, I can say it's been really encouraging the amount of interest and willingness to collaborate with the municipal broadband providers, both Pulse, Connection, and Trailblazer in Estes Park has been really great. The general theme is, hey, if the county can figure out how to find the capital investments to build into these rural and areas adjacent to municipal broadband networks, then and we can find matching grant funds, and we can continue to build the network out. And it actually benefits all the municipal providers. The more homes you serve, the more communities that buy your service, the more resilient your utilities are. And so I think we're all kind of working together going, okay, what's really the barrier to building out the rest of Larimer County? And it's primarily capital cost of the initial construction. As you know, the city's bonded that through a tax initiative. And, they bonded it because they had a good use case. Their business case was solid, and that enabled them to borrow the money they needed to build out their initial network. We're already seeing take rates above what we estimated in both of the community broadband networks. And based on our statistics going into the more rural areas of the county, we feel really confident our take rates will keep going up. And so we're excited about this. By the end of November, we'll have engineering cost estimate data that we can home in on projects and priority areas of the county and start to look to match that to grant fund opportunities. The other component of this, which is where the partnership comes in, is how do we work together sustainably? And I think a lot of that is building around, one, a way to recoup our investment as a county government, just like you're going to recoup and repay your bonds. If we're going to invest in matching funds, both of the providers, and our conversations have been very collaborative, but not to put too much risk on either one of the utility providers. So we're trying to come up with a balance to make sure there's low risk for Loveland Pulse to expand their network into areas south and are much in need down into the boundaries of Boulder County, as well as to allow the county to have a model that they can recoup some of their investments into the community. And so that's been our takeaway. We're still working through those discussions and trying to figure out how do we make sure we're all in this and we have skin in the game and we're working together on this. And at the end of the day, the cool thing is the municipal broadbands will own the network. The county said from the beginning, we're not in a good position to run a utility. We don't have the facilities for that, but we can convene and we can put some resources towards the problem. We can partner with folks. We can be the facilitator of these conversations, and we can help write grant applications and do the things that need to be done to try to solve this problem. Our vision right now is in the next 5 years, we could be the highest and most connected community in the nation. Northern Colorado, in the Larimer County area of the nation, could be the flagship county in all of the nation for connectivity, which is really crazy to think we have an opportunity to do that. what does that do? That, that expands our resiliency. It opens up opportunities for us to be a leader in areas of digital equity, such as connectivity for those who don't have financial means to do it. It allows us to expand our services into locked in, sheltered folks that can't get out. I think, Jody, you may have missed a little bit of the, future of medicine is really going towards sensors and, remote appointments for follow-ups and checkups, so people don't have to be on the roadways. It directly connects to our climate goals in the region to reduce pollution. And, it's funny, I've been in these communities where we talk about all the systemic issues of the county and the community, and what's at the base of a lot of them. It's trying to solve some of these connectivity issues so we can then impact things like pollution, education, even childcare to some extent relies on connectivity. If you want to monitor your kids in a daycare, you need cameras and stuff. You can't do that right now in areas of Wellington and Red Feather Lake. There's just not enough bandwidth to purchase, not at an affordable rate. And then that comes to the affordability side, where we're trying to think long-term to say, hey, can these networks also be resilient enough to also fund some equity projects to allow connectivity equity needs, both for the three big areas of equity are connectivity, number one, can't do anything without connectivity. Devices is number two, which the schools have been amazing about. They're really getting a head start on this. And number three is just the ability. How do you, learning how to use technology? How do you be a member of society in the digital age? And as you're well aware, we're getting a lot of pressure at the state level and from our own residents to provide more services digitally, that they don't want to come in necessarily to the front desk anymore. The next generation is used to Amazon.com on their phone. They're not really thinking, why should I come into the county to do business? They want some other models. And so in order to work in this new economy and be an efficient, resident of our community, how do you do that? And, first and foremost, like I said, you got to provide the connectivity they need. You have to have the devices to get on, and you have to have the knowledge of using it properly. And so these are cool projects. It's kind of fun to be a part of. I'm happy to answer any other questions that maybe I missed, but I will add one more thing. We've also been partnering quite a bit in the region with folks like Poudre Valley REA. They're trying to connect their substations all over the county in order to monitor the electric grid and do more dynamic switching of electricity around the region when they have issues. And by doing that, we're looking to partner with them in order to expand. Anytime we're going to build that backbone infrastructure, that middle mile, the county's like, hey, what do we got to do to get some connectivity capacity so we can build out into those rural areas? And so a lot of good collaboration going on in the region. I think everyone, after COVID and being locked up at home and working, remotely and feeling the pressure from all the residents on being productive in these remote work environments, I think we're in a really great position. The other interesting thing that, I'm also plugged in quite a bit in the whole IT space in general. And a lot of this movement to employees are demanding a flexible work environment. It's not just coming from the efficiencies that I brought up before. It's actually a quality of life issue for a number of people. I have a daughter with a 1.5-year-old grandson. She's worked from home in her accounting job since COVID started. She doesn't want to go back. She'll go in, occasionally, because you want that community connection to your coworkers. But when it comes down to it, doing your day-to-day work, why would she want to be on the road for 40 minutes to get to her office in Broomfield? Maybe she has lunch with her husband and son, every day as a break that she has that she cherishes. The statistics are telling us that 50% of the workforce will look to leave an organization if they don't provide hybrid work. That's a pretty startling statistic. Based on the current trends, they're thinking 1 in 3 people could leave their job in the next year if organizations don't become flexible and provide the services to allow them to be a little more flexible in how they plan their day and how they work. The county, as you know, has been kind of working as trying to be a leader in this space. We have a really robust telework and telework program that we're trying to leverage at the county that a lot of other communities have taken our blueprint and reused it. So I welcome Loveland to take a look at it. But I think that'll also open up other opportunities for folks that can live in this digital economy and work anywhere. Where would I want to live if I can work for Silicon Valley? Sign me up for Fort Collins and Loveland. I'm all in, which is going to probably have those negative impacts that we have to be aware of on potential housing costs and other things. And so this is an interesting dynamic problem. The conversation I've had with Jody before is, I don't think you're stopping people from moving here. But what do we got to do to be ready for it and provide a more resilient community? Maybe they just need, maybe folks need to move a little more into Wellington and North, which has zero connectivity right now in a lot of areas. And so this is an exciting space. I'm glad to be working on it. I'm trying to position the community and the county to be ready for the next round of large funding that's coming down from infrastructure projects that should be funneled through the state of Colorado over the next year. So we're in a priority position to get access to this money early. I look at the requests for these grant funds for rural broadband and community broadband as being kind of a bell curve. If we can be on that early part of the bell curve, we got a better chance of getting money than if we're waiting until the middle. And from my conversations with my peer CIOs from around the nation, we are quite a bit ahead of most organizations and regions in terms of our readiness to go after this funding. So that's my spiel. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, or maybe there's gaps that I left that I could fill in for you folks. I will mention a couple other small projects that we're working on. When there's opportunities for small projects, the commissioners have really interested and open to having conversations. And one of those was this project where we partnered with Poudre Schools, Thompson School District and Pulse to try to look at some hotspots and fix them. And so anything your community can do to give us information on where your problem areas are, we'll try to take that data back and try to look for opportunities to maybe target some hotspots that need more attention. And as we were looking at Drake, it became aware that, there might be a really good opportunity to hook up some other areas like the Sylvandale Guest Ranch area, because it's right off of the highway and it's a really inexpensive build. And so we're actually having conversations right now about a potential small little add-on micro project to go ahead and try to do a little, benefit for an organization that relies on those services to the community and has been an anchor tenant in the county for a long time. And so, those are the kind of things we're looking for feedback from our municipal partners on. What else could we do? What are you hearing? I'm only one guy, and I have actually an internal project job too, which is to run the IT for Larimer County, which, as you just heard, is trying to digitize a lot of services. So we're busy. And so I really rely on my ears on the street and all the folks that we're trying to collaborate with to kind of keep us aware of what the opportunities are. Is there anything I can add? Or Jackie, did you have questions about some of what's going on right now?
I'm
Great
glad
job,
to,
Mark. Yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear the county is working on this. When we were first talking about broadband, bringing it to every residence and every business in Loveland, I had a lot of people that are just outside city limits asking when it would come to them. And I said, well, our first priority is within the city. So good to hear that you guys might be filling some of that gap. What about like Masonville, Glade Road and those areas? Is that on your list?
So these are areas where we're, I can do a screen share. So that would be, so this was that red line that you see right here, right?
Okay.
That's getting into Masonville. And so that's actually a priority connection point that we don't have any kind of infrastructure right now. And so we're actually talking with Poudre Valley REA on ways to cross connect this.
Okay, so I'm not an IT person, so I just I don't know the capabilities and limitations. Are you in touch with the Platte River Power Authority, because they had rings around all the cities going back a long decades? So are you working with them as well, trying to make
Yeah,
connections?
excellent question. Yes, we've been a partner with Poudre Valley REA since the inception of their fiber network. So We have connectivity on almost every ring that they have, so we know where they go and don't. They're really a great provider in the Front Range kind of, municipal, or I'll just call them the urban corridor.
Yeah.
But once you get past that, they don't have much going out into rural areas. That's where our primary partners right now are, under our Northern Water and Poudre Valley Rural Electric. And so we have like a project right now with Northern Water to try to get connectivity to our Carter Lake headquarters up by Carter Lake, and also position ourselves with some connectivity in those regions for some of the future campgrounds and some of that. But as we're doing those projects, we're trying to get ourselves aware of, okay, what if we want to start building connectivity to these communities? And so every time we're doing one of these projects, it's kind of like, when you rip up the roads, should you put conduit in or something? We're trying to overbuild capacity because it's a lot cheaper to do it the first time than to come back and retrofit.
That's why what triggered is being able to do some underground utility preparation, because obviously every year our growth management area expands every year, and at some point we get closer to Estes gets closer to us, same with, Fort Collins. And so it seems like, yes, if you're going to be doing this, it would be a good opportunity to look at digging it up once. And
yeah, what kind of drives, so when you're looking at these networks, you got to look at who's adjacent and who has capacity. And it's kind of like a water system, almost the way fiber optic networks work. If you don't have a pipe that has enough capacity in it with enough capability to expand up into an area, you kind of you're kind of stuck until you fix your capacity problems. Yeah. And so actually Loveland Pulse, and kudos to Loveland Pulse. Their engineering and design teams that built your network and prepared for this put significant capacity for the ability to expand your network.
Good.
They were thinking out into the future. They weren't just thinking for themselves. They were preparing for what's next. And they're in an excellent position to expand up into Masonville. They have conduit and huts and things just on the perimeter. And really it just comes down to, okay, we're ready to cross connect and move up into this corridor. If we have the capital money, we can do it because you have the connection point to make that interconnect into the rural areas of the county. And so in Fort Collins, they're a little less prepared for some of this, but we're working with them to retrofit as part of this first grant opportunity, kind of make them a little more capacity ready. But in a lot of cases, Loveland has really helped us in an immense way by just saying, hey, we're ready, show us the money. We can build a contractor come in and we can start expanding. And that's pretty exciting.
Brianna really has done a great job. Sometimes when you're talking about, adding, some of the other underground utilities, there's actually more funding, in some of those other pots, because as you get ready to expand into surrounding areas.
And one thing to remember is you get more and more out of the city areas, out of these municipal boundaries, you have to start thinking more about aerial fiber connections.
And I don't like to hear that. I'd like the concept of, being underground is a lot less susceptible to weather interruptions. And, and I know once you start getting into the hills of Estes, going towards Estes, that becomes very difficult because of the terrain.
Yeah.
But I would think as much as we can, we want to be underground.
I totally agree with you. If you can be underground, you limit your maintenance issues. But the reality is, once you get into some of these shale heavy areas, and the cost of boring goes up to like $40 a foot or something. It just becomes cost prohibitive when you're trying to solve a much larger problem. You try to put resiliency into other areas to make your network a little more resilient for breaks and failures. And you put enough loops in to kind of protect against.
Yeah, but imagine the next major, disaster, that ability to communicate, to keep your communications, when there's, say, a flood or storms, we're talking lives. So, maybe this is a conversation we should have with Congressman Neguse about finding some additional funding, because it does, in the end, it will be a public safety issue in the next disaster.
Absolutely. And I have the lucky privilege of sometimes getting a lot of the calls from citizens, residents that are struggling with phone issues in rural areas. I don't know if you're aware, but it appears that some of our incumbent providers have reduced their service quality. Maybe that's a nice way to put it. And so the reality is, well, who's going to have to step in and provide emergency communications in the future? Is that the role of government? Maybe utility providers for telephone are starting to go, well, you know, this was our heyday, but what's our future? If they're not going to reinvest in their support models and community, you know, someone's going to have to fill the need for communication to our residents. And so these kind of networks can do that. They can, you know, as you know, IP networks can do pretty much anything. They can run video, data, telephone. And so the resiliency of the network becomes pretty important. But we have residents that have called and said they've been waiting a month or more, 2 months, to try to get CenturyLink to repair a copper telephone circuit into their home. And that's the only way they can, you know, get communication
internet
back.
Yeah.
The other thing we saw was in the rustic area, I think we were down 3 or 4 months. Folks completely blacked out when power poles went out. And, you know, some of those conversations are, what can you put into those regions to make them more resilient? Can you put some wireless hotspots in maybe for backup in case you lose some power poles? So we're having really good conversations. Emergency management has a lot of good ideas on where their priority areas are. And we're trying to look at those and go, okay, as we do this, let's start thinking about when this stuff happens, what are our opportunities to fix it quicker?
Yeah, you bring up some interesting points and spur some interesting ideas, because, you know, when we were having the panel discussions with about 9 providers before we opted to do it ourselves, you know, one of the questions that I asked at the end of the panel discussion was, you know, you're talking about when you do new development, you're willing to put in fiber broadband, but what about the existing people? And their answer was only when it made economic sense. So that's kind of what you're touching on too. It's not profitable. You're talking about a business entity that's in it for the profit. So maybe where, you know, governments can step in, county and municipal, is passing ordinances, you know, that you must, you know, repair within a certain period of time. And if you don't, we reserve the right to make the repairs and charge you, so
Yeah.
that people have access guaranteed. Because you're right. I mean, it can be life and death if
Yeah.
somebody can't communicate at a time of need.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You know, I've been reading some of our franchise agreements and things like that, and I think those are tools that we probably need to leverage better in the future, at least in the interim until we provide something better.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
because they're at the mercy. They're at the complete mercy of a for-profit entity.
yep, and it is hard to judge whether or not they're in it for the long haul. I think the pressure to try to find profits quickly has changed the market a bit. I think all these kinds of networks and projects are profitable, but not on the short term.
Yeah.
You know, it could take 15 years to pay back a large, like your network project is probably a 15-year payback period.
Yeah, but we're not for profit, you know.
Yeah, but it's
So
15 years
we're
for
not
some
looking
businesses,
for
you know.
instant gains. We're trying to improve quality of life for our residents and better business, you know. Yeah.
So I
I see
think that
this.
comes to that point of Jody on, you know, whether broadband is the next utility, you know, is internet. And I think we've had great conversations about that. I think I see that's where the market goes. I've talked to Wellington, that's where they see it going. That's where both city utilities see it going. And so I think ultimately in the region, we probably just have to have a utilitized approach primarily as our avenue to ensure that these are priority services delivered fairly and equitably to our community. And we want to have more control over it because our residents are asking us to have more control over it, I think is the bottom line for me.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you said the same exact scenario with your garbage collection and you had a company that would, you know, that's not convenient for us to pick up that garbage, and then all of a sudden you have an obvious health and safety issue because now you have, you know, rats and mice and stuff, they wouldn't tolerate it. But it's tolerable that somebody can't get internet or TV or phone service. We don't see that as critical, and yet it really is.
Is it tolerable, Jody?
No. Yeah, sometimes when we're at a certain time of night, we can't even, I don't get to watch a lot of TV, but it's really frustrating when I finally try to sit down with my family and watch, and every 5 minutes it freezes and spins, and I get kicked out of Zoom meetings for work and my daughter's education. It's really frustrating, and we have no other choice. There are no other really affordable, or there's not a lot of providers out here, and so we're kind of stuck with what is available, and it's not very responsive. But I think we talk about, I think it's a great point. I don't remember who said this now. But this is looking forward into the future. And when we think back to City Fort Collins, what was 1970s, they decided to put all of their electrical lines and things underground, and you don't see the overhead poles in Fort Collins. Well, now, 30 years later, people are like, wow, that was really forward thinking. And that then really provides, a lot of, safety. And then when we have big storms, a lot of people are not going without power. And I feel like this is really this point in time where we could really be forward thinking, and they'll look back and say, wow, I'm really glad that they went and worked hard to get this done, because it's changed a lot of things for so many reasons for our county. And so I'm really super excited, Mark. You shared all these things, and I'm really glad that Mayor Marsh can hear this, and feel bad the rest of the community doesn't get to hear it, but we're recording this, so I'm going to share this out. And I'm hoping we'll continue to have conversations. And we're meeting next week with some state legislators of the area, so they can understand and hear all these things. And I'm talking with some folks at the Joint Budget Committee at the state capitol to make sure this is on their radar. And it's really, I think, going to be critical for helping us kind of spring forward into the future after COVID. And I think it's shown us where the inequities are and where we need to really address this as a service to those for so many reasons. And you're right, Mark, I forgot the medical piece, which would be really important for a lot of folks in a mental health, behavioral health sense, for appointments, for medical and prescribing, for, prescriptions for folks. And even now, my mom doesn't have to go into the doctor. She can just go stand next to this device in her bedroom for her pacemaker, and they can read her, her scans for her pacemaker, and it sends it to the doc, and he can talk to her. So that saves her a trip in, and especially with COVID and things, she gets very frightened to go into certain places. So I think we are really at a change in a change and transformation in our world and our community. And I think this is going to be a big piece of it. So I feel really honored and excited to have this as part of my goal of stewardship for the county. And I can't thank you enough, Mark, for being here today. I'm going to probably bring you out to Bertha too, because they really were not aware we were doing this. So we're looking to do one maybe in the evening. And I know even law enforcement's interested in hearing what you have to say. And the Mayor Karspeck is very interested. So Mayor Marsh, I hope you enjoyed this today and felt this was a great update for you, so you can hear what we're doing and what we're hoping to do, and what great partners City of Loveland and Pulse have been so far. And we're really grateful for that.
Yep, happy to hear it. And I have the same device in my bedroom as your mom does that reads my pacemaker.
Oh, cool.
Small world, isn't it?
I just say, how lucky are we that we have a commissioner who has crappy internet at home?
Yes, and yes, great for you, but bad for me, but maybe great because I'm fighting. And I just live west of Loveland in the foothills. I literally, it takes me 2 minutes to get into the City of Loveland, the city limits. And it's amazing how different it is. And it really, during the pandemic, my daughter, who just graduated high school, it really impaired her ability to learn online. And everyone, I'm sure the staff are very kind. They don't say anything, but I know many meetings, they kind of joke about it now, that I freeze up or I disappear and bounce back on. And I think there's one meeting, it was like 7 times I kept getting kicked off. So I finally just said, I'm not coming. And so coming back in, I'm tired of trying to get back in. So yes, I have very challenging internet issues out here just west of Loveland, which reminds me exactly how frustrating it is for all the residents in my in unincorporated areas. And so I'm definitely a voice for them to have increased access and services. So, well, Mark, I'm hoping that you'll be ready to do this in maybe the Berthoud area here soon. And I know, like Mark said, this is something that he's doing above and beyond his already important work that he does for internet things and information things throughout the county. And he really was instrumental with kind of the vaccine and appointment system and all that out at the ranch and helping us when we were in the middle of the pandemic. He really built that up from scratch. And that's all that excellent work, Mark, with you and the Department of Health is one of the reasons FEMA and the state chose our Larimer County ranch site for the only, I think at that time, the first and only joint vaccination and testing center. So really, really cool stuff that you do. I'm so grateful that you work for Larimer County, and I look forward to, I know we're trying to add some to your team so they can help us look for all these grant opportunities. And I know that's moving forward. So Mayor Marsh, now you can see why I'm super excited about this. And Jalitza, thanks for helping facilitate this today, and would love to have this link so we can share it with the public. And Mayor Marsh, I know you're going to be speaking here in just a few minutes for Alternative to Violence. So I'll let you have a few extra 5 minutes to get over to your speech. And Mark and Jalitza, thank you so much for spending some of your Saturday morning. Thank your families for taking some time away from your weekend. And get outside, everybody. It's a gorgeous day in Larimer County. Get outside, enjoy these fall colors, and take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, Mark, can I have you hold just for a second? And I'll have Jaleesa stop recording. Cool. So